What's good, YouTube? This is Boxingwave. Please subscribe to the channel. Shout out to everyone that was here last night for the live commentary. I was able to re-watch the fight with Ryan Garcia and Oscar Duarte. We all know that Ryan stops Duarte in the 8th round. So I wanted to go back and rewatch it with the commentary on and just see if I noticed anything that was different from what I saw last night. And it was kind of a weird fight because there was so many different transitions with Ryan Garcia. And when I see that, I would like to believe that he was just trying stuff out. You know what I mean? Maybe these guys went into this fight wanting to just try new things out. He's with Derek James now. And it was just every couple of rounds, it seemed like Ryan was doing something different. Now, the way the fight started is how I pretty much gave you my prediction on. I thought he was going to fight more of a rangier fight and you using his legs and controlling distance with his lead hand. I've seen him do that in the Romero Duno fight. I know that fight lasted a lot shorter, but I thought he was going to come out with that style. And the way he came out in this fight, it looked like that for the first 2 rounds. But then when we get into the third and fourth round, where he started going into this, I don't know, Colorado shell defense, which was kind of weird. No disrespect to Colorado, but definitely wasn't a Philly shell. Where I gave Duarte those 2 rounds, and then the fifth and sixth rounds is where it was like another transition, because in the fifth round, I felt like Ryan was starting to fight back. Like, you know what I mean? He was still using that shell, but it was like he was countering and throwing combinations off of it instead of just using it for pure defense. You know what I mean? And I thought I saw a mix of a little bit of movement from Ryan, mixed with that shell defense that he was using, and him firing back. But he was still taking some shots in between. And then it was like the 7th and the 8th round where the fight ending, where Ryan was doing a ridiculous amount of lateral movement. Like, it was just ridiculous. Like, it's borderline running. You know what I mean? But he did connect with left hook at some point in the 8th round, which hurt Duarte, and then he pretty much finished him off after that. But there's so much stuff. Like, okay, you have the transitions with Ryan Garcia, but then you had the referee, who I thought was doing a terrible job. I think he was way too involved in the fight, and I don't think he was given the proper warnings for both fighters. I think that with Duarte, Duarte was rabbit punching, and Duarte was at times hitting Ryan behind the back. You know what I mean? Like, to the body, but behind his back. And I think a lot of that had to do with the faulty shell defense, where Ryan was completely turning around. You know what I mean? So I think the proper way to do it would have been to warn Ryan, because everybody's seeing. I know last night when I was doing commentary, everybody was in the comments, including myself, was saying the same thing. Why is he turning around? Why is he turning his back whenever he's doing that Philly shell defense? And another thing is, like, the commentary, as I was listening to it today, they were saying the same thing. So it's like the referee should have been warning Ryan, telling him, like, stop turning your back to your opponent, because now you're either leaving opportunities to him hit you in the back of the head, whether you're leaning over to get hit in the back of the head, or if you're just turning your back to get hit in the back of the head or the lower part of your body. It's just, you're complaining, and then Ryan on top of that is complaining about it in that third and fourth round too. So it's like, it's messing up the rhythm of Duarte, because we know what kind of fighter he is. Duarte is pretty one-dimensional, right? Obviously, he's not great at fighters that move. And from when I've seen him in his previous fights, yes, he's pretty explosive. He has some good hand speed. He does have power. But when he's having a lot of success, it's usually because he trapped his opponents in a corner or against the ropes, and then he's able to like unload with hooks. You know what I mean? And when Ryan was moving, it just gave him a lot of issues. You know what I mean? His like Duarte needs you to be standing right in front of him with very little movement. You know, and I think Ryan, you know, even when he was using the shell defense, even though Ryan was right in front of him, Ryan was turning his back, and for the most part, outside of some hooks, Duarte couldn't really hit him that clean. You know what I mean? Yeah, but the referee, it was just doing too much, man. It's just annoying me. I think it was annoying everyone. Obviously, everyone in the crowd was being annoyed because they kept booing, but the referee was kind of whack, you know, for this fight. So what I'll say is this: I don't remember seeing Ryan. I'm not sure if he has in the past, but I don't remember seeing Ryan go into a shell as much as he did in this fight. But what I will say is obviously he's flawed at it. It's a flawed defense. You know, and I think him not only just turning his back, but just not having a balance to keep that bladed stance. You know what I mean? His balance every time he would shell up, it seemed like Duarte, and I was saying a little bit last night, it seemed like every time Duarte would hit him anywhere, he just didn't have the legs to keep himself balanced. And he would be like squared up at points, still trying to use the shell. And it's kind of like awkward. You know what I mean? It was just a flawed, stance. It wasn't really working for him. You know what I mean? And I don't know if this was part of the camp. I don't know if that's just something that they were working on with Derrick James. I don't know what Derrick James' experience is like with the Philly shell, but I just know that Frank Martin is not really a Philly shell guy. Neither is Errol Spence, AJ, Jamel Charlo. When I look at his camp, it doesn't involve like really good fighters that are good with the shell defense. You know what I mean? So if that's something they're working on, maybe there was somebody else assisting in camp, but it just didn't seem to work well. And I think Ryan used it a little too long in the fight. You know, I don't even think that was outside of the fifth round, because I would say in the fifth round, at least Ryan would roll the punches, but he would counter with short shots. You know what I mean? More so than the previous two rounds, which was the third and the fourth. The third and the fourth, it just seemed like he was using it just to, you know, cover his body and you know, just trying to avoid the hooks, but he wasn't firing back with it. You know what I mean? And you know, he wasn't catching a lot of the hooks to his head. He wasn't doing a good job with that. I think he was focused on protecting his body and not really catching the hooks, the left hooks from Duarte. You know what I mean? It just wasn't good, and he was off balance, and he kept turning his back. And maybe it's because it's the type of opponent he's facing. You know what I mean? I know that they were trying to sell Duarte based off the fact that, you know, Oscar and Bernard have beef with Ryan and they want him to lose and all that shit. A lot of people was pushing that. I said last night, you know, I'm not saying that Ryan doesn't have issues with Golden Boy, but what I also added is that was the only marketing involved in this fight here, was that there was an issue between Ryan and the team Golden Boy. You know what I mean? There was no marketing when it came to Oscar Duarte. You know what I mean? He was kind of unknown. He's a Mexican fighter that doesn't speak English, so there wasn't really much words exchanged between the two. And, you know, there was no bad blood, really. It's really just a tune-up that they sold to make it seem like this was Ryan's his most dangerous fights. And even though Duarte is a little bit more credible, a lot more credible than the other tune-up fights that Ryan had, because I do think this was a better opponent for Ryan at 140 than Tago and Fortuna. You know what I mean? But still, this was a tune-up, and this was a fighter that most of us expected Ryan to knock out. And, I just I don't really believe in all the hype with the beef between a promoter and a fighter, Even if there is some issues, it's so, I got people to pay attention a little bit more because of the issues with Ryan and Duarte, But Duarte proved to me that he was pretty one-dimensional, He's going to have issues with movers, guys that fight well, controlling distance, And Ryan, I just don't think this fight didn't make him look better. Like I had just watched the Romero Duno fight, and I rewatched it. I did content on it years ago, but Ryan looked so much more polished, controlling distance and moving in that fight. Whereas this, it seemed like maybe he didn't look better because he was trying things out, and he kept making adjustments as far as like defensively. Using his legs in a later round, using that shell in the middle rounds, and using his lead hand more in the earlier rounds. This is all things that I'm like focusing on while I was watching it this morning. And it makes me believe that he's just trying things out. I don't think he felt Duarte was a real threat to him. But I don't think this was a better version of Ryan. It might be a Ryan that is working on some new things with his coach, but there was nothing that he did particularly well with all the adjustments he made. He got the job done. Obviously, he got the stoppage, but we're looking for key things that we can see you do better, and I didn't see anything better. I still think, I think he's just a little too upright sometimes. I think his chin is still a little bit not suspect, but it's a little bit exposed at times. I think he's not the greatest at controlling distance, and I think that's something he should really polish more so than a Philly shell. I think if he's gonna do Philly shell, he would probably have to work with some other trainers that are focused on that. Derry James, to me, represent power. You know what I mean? Represent just aggressive boxer punchers. You know what I mean? That's what I see. AJ, Frank Martin. AJ was AJ before him, but I want to say mainly Frank Martin, Spence, and Jamel. Aggressive boxer punchers. You know what I mean? And Ryan going over there to try to be slicker, I don't think that's the right, kind of move. I was trying to think about this, and I'm throwing this all out there because I want you guys to leave the comments and let me know how you feel about like my observation of the fight. But I'm trying to figure out if Ryan should work on the things that he completely lacks, or work more on his strengths. And I think this fight was a representation of him working on what he lacks and abandoning his strengths. If you guys get what I'm saying. Like, he didn't look faster. He didn't look as explosive. Outside of the fifth round, maybe, like certain moments of the fifth round, I feel like Ryan wasn't really fighting to destroy his opponent. It seemed like he was just fighting to figure things out, and that's why I can't go that hard on him. It wasn't a great performance, but he got the job done. You know what I mean? And he took some shots within, doing what he did. Maybe the Philly show thing might not just be for him, or if he is going to work on it with maybe someone else that would be better. That's if that's what they were working on. You know what I mean? But we saw a lot of different transitions overall. And even with the lateral movement, it was just like, you're going to move that much, man. It was just too much movement, just moving and moving, going all the way to the left to one side of the ring, to just go circle back and go all the way to the right again. And then, it was like, let's get the lateral movement, but change directions a little bit. You know what I mean? Shuffle, reset yourself, stop and then pop pop. Like it was just move to one side of the ring, move to the other side of the ring, and then you'll square up for a second, and then you do the same thing over. And it's like, I know it was frustrating Duarte, but I don't know if it was like really being effective, and I don't know, maybe around the time, I know he did get the stoppage, but I don't know, man. I just think that there are certain fighters like moving laterally do it better. I think he was overdoing it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I did like the fact that Ryan came out the Lupe fiasco though. You guys know, like last night as I'm watching it, I'm like talking to you guys, so I see that he's coming out with someone, but I didn't realize that it was Lupe all that time. Like I wasn't paying attention to the ring walkouts. I thought that was cool. I don't think it's bad that he called out Rolly. I don't think it's bad. I know people don't care for Rolly. I know I don't, but I know as far as like selling a fight, and if you're still in a period where you're trying to learn and work on a few things, that is a kind of fighter you would fight, because Rolly, even though he's a big puncher, he's one of the most technically flawed fighters up there. You know what I mean? And I don't even think he should really have a belt at this time. But Rolly is gonna sell the fight by doing the extra amount of talking, and they're gonna probably try to make that a pay-per-view, which is ludicrous. But I mean, it is what it is, man. Ryan will be fighting someone that is dangerous, that do have a puncher's chance, but he's not really technically sound. And I think if Ryan just boxed the way that he's boxed throughout throughout his career, he shouldn't have too much of a problem with Rolly. It's just where this phase where he's trying new things out, that's the phase that I'm really concerned about. You know what I mean? So, I guess we just got to wait and see. I don't want him to fight the top tier guys, but those are not bad fights neither. Like if they were to announce that he's going to fight Teofimo Lopez, in a few months from now, that would be a good fight. You know what I mean? But Ryan would have to be a lot less experimental. I know he lost the Tank. I know he lost the Tank, but I still think that he's gonna have his flaws and he could work on those. But I don't think he should try to switch his style. Like, you are fast and you are explosive and you're very powerful. And I think he should work on certain things. But this fight here, it looked like he was trying to figure out what style he wanted to fight without being himself. And it could have cost him a fight. It didn't. But with a certain caliber of opponent, it could cost him a fight. All right. So, yeah, I think that's my thoughts on this. Again, Ryan, I said yesterday, Ryan is like a type of guy that I don't see him as an A level fighter, but I see him, like, if he is an A level, I see him at the very bottom of the A level fighters or the very top of the B level fighters, like a B plus type of fighter. Last night he didn't fight like that. Last night he fought more like a B minus type of fighter. You know what I mean? But I think he's capable of being like a B plus A minus, whatever. Doesn't really matter. What I mean by that though is I think the super elite of the division will outbox him. That goes for the TOs, the Haneys, and stuff. But if Ryan is on his A game and he just make some adjustments defensively while still fighting the way he does, I think he'll be good, And if he really was injured in the Tank fight, or if he really was drained, I mean, that could have had an effect. But, I felt like Ryan caught the shots from Tank that I expected him to prior to the fight. But not everyone can do what Tank did. You know what I mean? Tank, very big puncher, you know what I mean? And his boxing IQ is very high to me. But I would like to see him prove it against another very high IQ fighter, which he hasn't done yet. But against these kind of fighters, he's always gonna excel. You know what I mean? And I'm talking about Tank Davis. So anyway, I don't know. Ryan, I don't think that's the best version of him. I think he also needs to commit on trying to make 140. All right. I know this wasn't for a title, but he needs to commit to making a weight. All right, because you haven't been to 140 that long. We know they brought you down to a catch weight against Tank, but he needs to at least focus on committing to 140 if he decides to compete there, because he shouldn't be competing at 147. Absolutely not. So you should keep yourself down to 140, all right, and get used to cutting down to the division instead of having these above weight catch weights. You have 140, stick to 140, even the non-serious fights. You know what I mean? Just my opinion. All right. So I think I said everything I needed to say. Again, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.